Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Nerds of the North podcast. I am host number 1, Matt, and joining me today, as usual, is host number 2.
Nick.
Today, we're going to be discussing some more goings on in the world of superheroes in television and cinema. We'll be hearing from Nick some of his opinions on the Snyder Cut. We got a bulk of my opinion on it from last week, due to me having seen it first. Then we'll also be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 2, as well as the newly released run of Amazon's Invincible, based off of the comic series of the same name. So, Nick, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, so today we're going to start off with talking about Invincible. I've had the chance to watch the first 3 episodes and found them pretty great so far. And Matt has watched the first 2 and has begun reading the graphic novel by Robert Kirkman. And I don't know the artist there, but I should. So we're just going to kind of get into what we think about that. What are your initial thoughts, Matt?
I mean, I'm really loving the world building so far. Like, just in the run of episodes available right now, the first 3 are streaming. And even in the comic, you get a very wide berth of what is possible in this world pretty darn quickly. Like, you have there are demons, there are scientifically based superheroes, there are your Batman-esque rogues, there are Superman figures, there are aliens, alternate dimensions. There's a lot going on and a lot to unpack in this world, and the fact that we get to view it through the eyes of a teenager who has just acquired his powers is really interesting. And so far, I know I'm really enjoying it. It reminds me of Watchmen in terms of, like, kind of how a little more grounded in reality the physics and the tropes of the show are.
Yeah. And I just want to say up front too, I should have said this initially, that there will be spoilers discussed throughout this topic.
Yes.
So just FYI, because the next thing I want to talk about involving Invincible is the ending of episode 1. Yeah, so essentially Omni-Man lures the rest of that universe's version of the Justice League into their hideout and just wrecks them. He
Just brutally murders every single one of them.
Yeah, it's extremely graphic and kind of awesome. So yeah, it's it's so interesting just watching that scene. There's no music and it's just so goopy, splats and people getting wrecked, and you just realize how strong these like Omni-Man is.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that he, you know, much in the same way that, like, Hulk, wings Loki around and slams into the ground several times. Loki's reaction to that is to go, "Oh, ow, that hurt." In this world, Omni-Man does that to a hero, and his intestines comes flying out through his mouth. Like,
Yeah,
like it's absolutely so brutal. And
yeah,
that's kind of what I was talking about with, like, the Watchmen comparison of, like, this is a world where, like,
yeah.
the heroes, yeah, there are superpowered individuals, but clearly there's a hierarchy of who is the boss, who's the biggest and best, versus who just gets to tag along. And Omni-Man strut his stuff in that scene, to say the least.
Yeah, I would say if I was going to compare it to anything right now, would be a weird mixture between The Boys and Rick and Morty. Just that
Ooh,
kind of
sure.
insane kinetic action, though not quite as up there with Rick and Morty, but just idea after idea after idea thrown at you, but also has sort of that superhero critique that The Boys has to an
Right.
insane level. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's if you enjoyed either Rick and Morty or The Boys, this would be a great show for you.
Hmm. Yeah, and I definitely would recommend, as Nick had mentioned at the top, um, or I am currently in the midst of reading the Compendium One of Invincible. I believe there are at least three compendiums to go through, and they are uh, ridiculously girthy in the paperback, anyway. Um, but I'm really thoroughly enjoying it so far, and the show has done a pretty decent job of matching up with the comic for the most part. There are some storylines that I don't know if they've outright removed, or if they've just have moved things around to make for, I won't say cleaner storytelling, but just faster paced storytelling and kind of getting where they want to go faster. Um,
Yeah, and I never find typically an issue with that as long as
mhm,
they're doing it well and it's still flowing well, because they are two entirely different mediums. You can't expect it to carry over 100%, and not that you're
mhm,
suggesting that, but yeah, I think, I mean, as someone who hasn't read the graphic novel or the comics, I think it it's good that I understand what's going on. So maybe it would be a good idea to hold off reading the graphic novels until the show's over or the season's over.
mhm. Yeah, because I mean, you're getting a very excuse me, you're getting a very like well-rounded and really cool story through Invincible that is it's still getting to the necessary beats that are currently in the graphic novel, because I'm basically right around the point where the show has gotten to. But yeah, like I said, some things have been moved around. Certain events have um, taken place in a different form or medium, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it does create differences between the two that makes them both worthy of watching or reading.
Hmm.
And and but yeah, I definitely think if you're vested enough in the show at this point, you can go out and do what I did and buy Compendium One, or even just the first few issues. You can get them in a variety of different formats to kind of figure out if you would prefer one over the other.
Right.
But I'm enjoying both, and I know I want to just soak up as much Invincible stuff as I can. It's been very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm almost leery to even talk about this at this point, but I did write this blog here, and I have, which is titled Taking Down a God, Modern Superheroes. And just the running theme of the shows I've been watching recently having to do with superheroes is almost like a critique of Superman in particular, because we have Omni-Man with Invincible, we have Homelander with The Boys, and obviously in Justice League there's Superman. Where at the end of that movie, spoiler alert again, Superman actually ends up, I believe, being possessed by some sort of something and has actually basically destroyed the world.
Hmm.
And I would also argue that, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier has a similar thing going on. This time it's a critique of Captain America. And Captain America and Superman, though one is very much more powerful than the other, I feel sort of represent American ideals like no other superheroes do. So to me, it's just kind of an interesting theme that's going on with a lot of these shows about what is what is good. Like, and the way I portrayed it here was, and sorry, man, I know this is completely off topic, but this is just kind of what was
Hmm.
in my brain when we're talking about this kind of stuff. Is
Sure, sure.
that in our world, we're living in a postmodernistic world. It's moral it's moral relativistic. So we don't have uh, are living in a post-Christian society, I would say, specifically
Hmm.
dealing with the United States. So a lot of people these days don't really have that same sort of moral grounding that they had before. So
Hmm.
in my eyes, like a lot of these stories are actually kind of a critique of not only the United States and if it's a good country, but also particularly with Superman, is God good? You know,
Mhm.
what is God evil? Is he good? What does it even mean to be good? And I feel like a lot
Mhm.
of these shows and movies and they're tackling that question through superhero comics and movies and media. And
Mhm.
that's what I got right now. What I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. We didn't really discuss this beforehand.
No, you're good. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I look at this. Um, yeah, I mean, all of these shows have definitely been touching on that same topic, and overall is, you know, I think maybe the best way it could be surmised is who watches The Watchmen. You know,
Yeah.
like who keeps the heroes in check, because you have because as you touched on with the end of Snyder Cut Justice League, um, like I touched on this a little bit with the Joker cameo at the end of that movie, and I'm under the impression that that scene is was Snyder's way at the time of setting up for an Injustice storyline to be introduced. Um, because I don't think that's a future of the heroes we've come to know and love in that movie. I believe that that is an alternate reality um, group of superheroes, and this is, of course, spitballing because none of this has been confirmed. Um, but from what I can tell, and that's why I think the Jared Leto Joker from that scene is so different from the one that we've seen previously in like Suicide Squad and such, is that it's a different Joker in its entirety, and like that version of Superman is the way he is because Lois Lane dies while carrying his child, and in the Justice comics, uh, to kind of just, I mean, having not read the full storyline, I've been more of the video game player in that regard. But uh, to surmise like what starts the ball rolling in that whole storyline, Joker essentially finds a way to drug Superman, and in doing so, makes Superman think that Lois uh, Lois Lane is a combatant of sorts, a monster, someone that needs to be fought. And Superman fights the villain and ends up killing Lois. And when he comes to, realizes what he's done. Superman murders Joker for what he did, which begins Superman's reign of terror of essentially wanting to eliminate crime and evil and war from Earth in its entirety, and does so by becoming a dictator. And so when we're making this comparison of, like who watches the Watchmen, who the heroes are being held accountable to in that universe, no one, quite frankly, which is why they end up going to another universe with another Superman to try and take out the one that they're having an issue with.
Interesting.
And in the case of like Homelander, like clearly he does not have an equal at this juncture. Again, I'm going to preface this again. If you've not seen all of these things, but we're going to definitely be very spoilery heavy. So, small pause. Right. So, Homelander's kid is like at this juncture the only person on Earth who could possibly contend with him, and he's not even old enough to do that yet.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but
spoiler
then,
alert too. Apparently in the comics, and I know you've read the comics a little bit, right?
mhm.
Um, who's the guy in the black suit? What's his name? He's like the
um,
Batman guy. He never talks.
oh, in Invincible.
No, in the boys.
Oh, in the boys. Oh, Black Noir.
Yeah, Black Noir. Apparently in the comics, he's a clone of Homelander.
Right. Which I'm not sure if they're going to follow through on that in the show or not.
Yeah.
Um, they
Yeah, I've
still
I've,
have the
I've seen stuff where
possibility of.
he isn't going to be because they
Mhm.
showed him or something, didn't they? I can't remember. There was
Yeah,
some
I'm trying
sort
to
of
remember.
reveal where it wasn't. It was kind of obvious that they weren't going to go that direction.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
I just wanted to throw this out there too, since you got on the topic of Watchmen. So
mhm.
I've been reading a book by Michael Heiser, who wrote, he's a theologian. He wrote a book called Unseen Realms. So essentially, in that book, he talks about uh, the Watchers that fell from heaven and basically corrupted mankind. So
Okay.
I just thought that that linkage between the two was kind of interesting because it's
Hmm.
in Genesis, and again, this is way off topic. I'm sorry, everyone who listens, but when God creates the earth, there's actually more gods present. He's talking to other gods when he creates the earth. That's
Hmm.
the Hebrew. That's what it says. The Elohim can be either plural or singular, and so the sons of God, when God created the earth, there was more gods there. And then in the apocryphal book of Enoch, some of these sons of God fell from heaven and partly corrupted mankind, and obviously mankind already had suffered some from their own doing. But this is kind of an interesting concept because, like in this blog in particular, I've made connections between gods and superheroes. So maybe
Hmm.
we'll go into that a little bit more at some other point, but it's something that I'm really, really interested in. So
Yeah. Well, and I think I don't think it would be an exaggeration at this point to be talking about how regarding superheroes, like in just everyday life in the collective culture we live in now, um, we're living in a like post Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. Like we've seen what can be done with these heroes in a grand scheme over a long period of time with a lot of buildup and with an eventual payout that um, I think for most people went beyond their expectations in terms of like what could be accomplished. And those were kind of the days of like from the first Iron Man movie to Endgame were the rose tinted glasses of like these heroes, who they were as people, and like what their intent and expectations were. Um, that was basically the entire point of Civil War was like Steve Rogers believed that they should have some level of autonomy from their actions being scrutinized or having their judgments be overruled by a governing body. He believed that that wasn't the right way forward, whereas Tony believed that they should have checks and balances in place to say like, well, we don't think that you should go there to help in this situation because of XYZ. And you kind of see that unfolding in different ways in these different shows of like in Invincible, Omni-Man took it upon himself, like with no real word from anyone on Earth. They're like, hey, I'm going to be your champion now. And who's going to say no? And so we see that in Invincible, and then when you look at like Injustice, the Injustice storyline from DC, Superman again, like in this circumstance, takes it upon himself. They're like, oh well, clearly I've been taking it too easy on you bad guys. I need to just do away with you entirely. I can't be nice anymore. And so we see those consequences throughout these different shows in different ways.
yeah, well,
And
and to me, like this almost sounds like what we're saying is we're we're almost afraid of what an all-powerful being is capable
mhm,
of, and it gets almost like this like demiurge kind of idea where is this story really about Superman, or is this really something about God that like in a world where, I mean, God is where we're living in a post-Christian society. I almost feel like this is a critique of who God is and what God is.
mhm.
Does that make sense? Like if it, just on a very like high level, if we're looking at this from like almost like a metaphorical level,
Hmm.
it's just kind of interesting how these fears are baked into us of
Sure.
what an all-powerful person is, or maybe even on a lower level, like maybe we're worried about this is just me, but and probably a lot of people won't even think this, but maybe it's a concern about government becoming too powerful, or
Hmm.
just what it means to be living in a society where your entire existence could be is out of your control by someone
Hmm.
that has more authority than you do or is more powerful than you are.
Right. Oh yeah, and I mean, and we see that every day, just in one way or another. You know, you have companies that have so much money as to make them immune from being punished in some way.
And obviously, like that's the boys critiques that all the time. In fact, I would think that show's main critique is about capitalism and
Hmm.
corporations for sure.
Oh yeah, like who can hold these businesses accountable? You know, take
Yeah,
that phrase of "who watches the Watchmen," but apply it to businesses in the real world. You know,
yeah,
a company gets slapped with a $2 million fine.
yeah,
You're like, oh yeah, okay. Do you take checks? Like, it's
yeah,
like, why would they care? Why would they possibly care about a $2 million fine? They made $1 billion doing the illegal thing that they did. So why the
yeah.
hell would they care about that? So,
Well, I mean, and I guess I'll be the person that brings this up too, but these shows and these movies that we're watching are being produced by multinational, huge conglomerate corporations.
mhm.
So I don't know what that says that they're producing these kind of shows for the plebes, the plebs.
Mhm.
But so I mean, The Boys is from Amazon,
Mhm.
like one of the biggest companies on earth right now.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, and
is so is
arguably one. Mhm.
Invincible, so
Right, and it's ironic in a way that that's what's happening because yeah, like you said, when you zoom out far enough on this topic, it's impossible for businesses like Amazon to stay out of the spotlight of like, well, who can hold these businesses accountable? Speaking of going way off the rails, this does remind me of recent stories regarding Facebook and how essentially they that Mark Zuckerberg essentially wants to have some sort of Facebook Supreme Court put in place to make decisions about the policies and rules and regulations that Facebook enforces on the global scale. And
yeah.
that
Well,
says a lot.
I can't remember who said this. So someone said it recently, but they're
Mhm.
like, they're, these people, like Jeff Bezos, even though he stepped down from leading Amazon right now, and Mark Zuckerberg and the head of Google, Sergey Brin, I think it is right now.
Mhm.
Like they have more power than most governments do at the moment. They have the power to censor speech. They have the
Oh,
power
one hundred percent.
to they see all your stuff all the time. Again, completely off topic. We could probably get back on topic, but yeah, I it's just interesting to me that that's where we're at as a I mean, we're making comments like this, but we're also the producers of this stuff, or at least the people that fund it, are these major corporations that might as well be freaking Zeus these days.
Mhm.
um, and I mean, even looking back then, like I was because in the Bible they obviously make connections between these fallen watchers and the gods.
Mhm.
Essentially, the Hebrews thought the gods of the other culture were these fallen watchers.
Mhm.
And if you look at what the Greeks thought of their own gods, they didn't. Were they thought they were extremely manipulative. They thought they were self-possessed. They didn't think
Sure.
they were particularly good, but they still worshiped them. I think it's kind of interesting.
Right.
Um,
Well, and I think that was more maybe out of fear, of being at the wrong end of the stick, so to speak. It's like
yeah,
I would rather in that moment be worshiping the god that could smite me in a moment than be the naysayer that's like, well, I don't think you're very good at all. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting opinion. Zap.
Yeah.
And then you're completely undone. So,
Yeah. Well, this is a good opportunity to move on to Justice League because honestly, this is kind of what I was going towards anyway.
mhm.
But yeah, I let me turn over to that blog because I was honestly really surprised by this movie, to be honest. I was like going in, I'm like, I'll try and watch like 2 hours of it and then I'll try the next. I watched all 4 hours straight in a row.
It's crazy how that works, right? Like, it actually is paced in such a way as to make 4 hours seem very doable for a movie. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't expecting that. I
mhm,
wasn't expecting it to be an actually a good film. I'm so used to being underwhelmed by Zack Snyder that when I
mhm,
actually was given something by him that I liked, I was a little set back. I was a little weirded out by it.
mhm.
But it didn't stop this from being like a hyper masculine, like just slow motion, like orgy of like buffed out beefcakes
Right.
hitting each other and like so much slow mo. There was some questionable music involved. I'm okay with it. Like I'm fine with it. I think the
I
thing
think
that
honest. Mhm.
I was just gonna say the thing that stood out that I kind of disliked the most, I think, was the Lois Lane stuff. Just kind of seemed sort
Yes.
of weird. It just seemed kind of like, oh, now she's like crying about like looking at this photograph, and now she's like over here crying about something else. But often, like, it didn't have any like actual play in the story. It was just kind of
Mhm.
like a reminder that Lois Lane was sad, which I guess did help Superman ground himself in the end. But I just thought it was kind of weird.
Well, and that gets back to the hyper masculine part of the movie. Like, it's like really when you're looking at so far as I can tell, in Justice League, there are two main like female characters who actually add to the story and the narrative, and that's Wonder Woman and Lois Lane. And Wonder Woman is this typically grounding type of character who, keeps the boys in check, so to speak, which is entirely sexist in its own regard. Like, they even with that joke of like, children, I work with children. Like,
Is that
like
was that even in the Snyder cut? I don't remember that. I remember seeing
the
it like
children, that children line, I think was in the Snyder cut, wasn't it? I don't think it was in the theatrical cut, if I remember correctly.
I think it wasn't a theatrical cut because I don't remember seeing it, but I could be
Let
off. I could
me.
be wrong.
I
I could
want
be wrong.
to be entirely sure because my point hinges more on this. No, you're totally right. I think, yeah, the I work with children thing, I think, is from the theatrical cut,
Yeah.
which actually doesn't vibe well with my argument as it stands, but at least with Wonder Woman. But pushing through to Lois Lane, though, like a character who generally is very, she's fiercely independent. She's in love with Superman, but she doesn't lean on him that hard emotionally for support. If anything, I feel like Superman leans harder on her. And when you're watching this movie, Lois Lane just spends the entire time just being sad. Like you said, sad about Superman not being there anymore. I think, like, sure, Lois Lane would mourn, but she wouldn't stop working. She wouldn't be rendered inert by his death. She would press forward. I think she's a much stronger character than that. But I think in this hyper masculine romp, we get a view of what Snyder kind of views Lois Lane as, and
There was
it's just
also
more of an
hints that
accessory.
she was pregnant as well. So
Yes, which kind of feeds into my injustice theory a little bit, but
yeah, yeah,
but
I think you're right about that. That sounds right to me about the
and
injustice
then
thing.
yeah, and then when you're looking at Gal Gadot, with Wonder Woman, she that was a huge complaint of mine with Wonder Woman 1984 was that Wonder Woman is a character who is very old. Like she's been around for many, many, many years. And although her first love died, fighting for a cause they believed in and to protect her, more or less, um, she spends what 80 years moping and being sad about that. Like that, not only is that a blip in the like overall length of her lifespan, it's like you mean to tell me that she just like went off the radar and was sad about this pilot dying for however many years? Like this is Wonder Woman we're talking about here. Like she's peak woman. Like what are we doing making a movie about her that she's such a sad sack about some random guy?
Um, I, I get what you're saying, but at the
Mhm.
same time, like if you lived 500 years and hadn't fallen in love with someone until you're like 500 or however
Mhm.
long she's been around, 5,000, I don't know. But like
Right.
that's like that would probably affect you a little bit. And time in that way probably isn't the same to her.
Possibly.
So
I could definitely see that argument.
I'm not gonna die on that hill. I guess I had quite a few issues with that movie, but that was one of
But
my lesser issues.
but but again, yeah, this is us going off the rails again. So
Yeah.
but but yeah, so but Snyder Cut, you like the movie, which is good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, I risk here just critiquing Zack Snyder in general because I have like a whole paragraph here critiquing Zack
Mhm.
Snyder and
Yeah.
like the whole weirdly like 2000 to 2010 era of like translation of these kind of classic 90s and 80s graphic novels into cinema and how
Mhm.
that kind of looked because like Snyder's version of Watchmen is very that way. Same with his version of 300. Like they're almost like
Mhm.
a panel for panel translation during certain scenes with
Sure.
slow mo, to like really make sure that that comes
Really
across.
drive the point home.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's been a little while since I've looked at this. So let's see. So what did I like? It flowed well. Yes, we already kind of covered that. I think it did. The
Mhm.
characters actually I liked them, and this I kind of watched the first Justice League with my mom, but I was so disengaged with it that I didn't really watch it that closely, to be honest. But
Mhm.
this one, I was really engaged by the characters. I guess really maybe isn't the correct word. I was engaged. I thought they did a pretty good job with it. Everyone had a reason to be there, and everyone ended up like actually playing a
Contributing.
part in the story at the end.
Mhm.
Especially I didn't even mention this, I should have. But like the Flash when he had to, and everyone's talking about this really, but that ending scene when the Flash had to go like so fast that he could reverse time was pretty freaking cool. Not gonna lie,
Mhm.
that was cool. Um, Wonder Woman, like when she takes out those terrorists in the bank, that was pretty cool too. She's like slapping them around and like flinging through the air, hitting
Mhm.
columns, blood splatting, and like this is like really cool. And then even if you're gonna do slow motion, that was the way to do it. That was cool. When she's like kind of
Mhm.
like going fast and then like stopping and then like hitting someone and then like she hits
Right.
someone else. And then like when there's all those people up against the wall and she like runs forward and like hitting bullets away with her little gauntlets or whatever those things are. Like
Mhm.
that was pretty sweet. Um and then like the 300 like flashback, which granted all this stuff was in the original, and I guess Zeus was in the original one, but
Right.
damn, that was cool. Like that was at the point of the movie. I'm like, damn, I'm enjoying this. This is freaking crazy. And like
Right.
Darkseid's there, and like freaking Zeus and like Ares and like Amazon warriors, Vikings, and a freaking Green Lantern that looks like some sort of weird elephant alien thing.
Right.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really crazy. And then
Mhm.
Darkseid, he gets like an axe in the neck, and blood spilling out. Man, crazy. That's at the point in the movie I'm like, actually, like that's really even like the Amazon scene in the temple or whatever the heck that was. That was
Mhm.
pretty sweet. I gotta admit though, like after it was like crashing into the Mediterranean Sea,
Mhm.
and I'm like, Wonder Woman's mom, you're like too close to that. How do you know you're not gonna that's not gonna come crashing down the sea too? Back up a little, lady. Of course, it was fine. But yeah, there's
Right.
so much like crazy crap going on, and I just kind of I was bludgeoned with this all this bonkers imagery,
Mhm.
and I just kind of gave up and just let go. And like, I'm like, have me, Zack Snyder. Like, I'm ready for you.
Right.
And then,
Yeah, I know. Your suspense of disbelief was initiated at that point, right? Like you were ready for this movie to just keep going.
yeah, and then the next like hour then goes into like flashes and Cyborg's backstory,
Hmm.
which they did a pretty good job of that. Like, it actually made me like them as characters, which I didn't think I was gonna like them, especially Cyborg. I thought they did
Yeah.
good with him.
Well, and when you like make some observations about how upset Ray Fisher was of his portrayal in the theatrical cut of Justice League, and then you see this movie, you can kind of get why he was so mad. Like they cut out a ton of Cyborg in his backstory and just a lot of his character development from the theatrical cut. And yeah, like you said, I like Cyborg from the Snyder cut of the movie, but in seeing the original theatrical cut, I was just like, oh my God, Cyborg is just kind of this whiny baby of a character and is just way too way too like closed off and emotional and self-centered to care about anything else going on around him, whereas he has moments like that, but he really like takes time to I don't know, to love himself in that way and to like accept this new form he's in the Snyder cut, and it just feels a lot better for that character.
Yeah, I think what kind of sells his character to me is when his dad got captured by um, Steppenwolf,
Hmm.
and he sees his dad being held up in the air and about to get killed, obviously, and he just
Hmm.
like screams and like shoots Steppenwolf to save his dad.
Right.
And actually, I saw someone who edited like they showed how that scene played out in the original versus how it plays out in this one. And like
Hmm.
in the original, like his arm turn Cyborg's arm turns like a gun or whatever, like a laser gun, and he
Hmm.
almost looks like, oh wow, this is cool. And then like he like shoots Steppenwolf, but in this one he like screams out for his dad, and like his arm changes, and like so it's almost like an emotional response, like he wants to save his dad even though he obviously had
Hmm.
issues with his father.
Sure.
So it made it more realistic and more emotional and more engaging because yeah, you're like, oh, this guy, they have issues but he still loves his dad, so then you kind of like accept him and kind of understand his story more.
Right. I think they in Snyder Cut, yeah, they definitely just do, yeah, they do a much better job of making him human and making him feel more human.
Which is
Whereas, like,
kind
I
of
feel like,
ironic. Maybe that's what Joss Whedon was going for. He's like, man, this guy's a cyborg, dude. We have to make him like
like,
completely unrelatable.
I know, let's just
He's
change all of his dialogue to beep boop bop bop and then go from there. Like,
yeah.
and that's kind of what they felt like they did to his character. But yeah, like, and then the same thing with the Flash. Ezra Miller didn't really hear a lot of um, complaints from him post theatrical release, but at least from my memory. But yeah, they flushed. I mean, I think a lot of people are talking about the hot dog scene and just how funny of a scene that is with him wanting to get a job at like a doggy daycare and running into who I assume is his love interest from the comics, which is shoot, what is her name? Um,
Hot
oh
dog
my
lady.
god, hot dog lady, right?
Yeah, that's how we all
Yeah.
knew.
Oh my god, why am I forgetting her name? I'm not going to forgive myself for forgetting this name. Thank you, wife. Iris, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, Iris Hot Dog Lady. I remember
yeah,
her. Yeah.
Iris Hot Dog Lady.
So you got the
No,
first
yeah,
name, I
like
got the last name, because that's her last name is Hot Dog Lady.
is Hot Dog Lady. I think that's canon.
Yeah.
No, yeah, like having that brief moment of introducing a character whom we could assume is Iris, and how that would move forward in the story later. I think it was really important, and I think would have been really valuable to leave in the theatrical cut, but they cut that out too. And just him pocketing the hot dog while moving super fast. Um,
Yeah.
I think the scene just works really well.
I don't know what it is, but I just always dig like the slow motion stuff. I
Hmm.
digged it when I saw it in X-Men with Quicksilver. I digged it even when I saw it in Sonic, that horrible movie. And I dug it here. Like there's a scene in Sonic where he's like, this is the stupidest thing, but they get in like a bar fight, like, and
Hmm.
he's like running around with like these hayseed hicks from Montana.
Hmm.
Northern nerds of the north, and like he's just like doing all this stupid crap, and I'm like, you know what, I'm fine. And then I like went back to their apartment, and he's like farts. He's like, oh
Hmm.
man, I had so many chili cheese dogs. I'm like, it's okay, like the
It's
scene was
okay.
worth it, like.
I
Yeah,
think generally I would agree. Like I tend to like slow motion scenes. Like Quicksilver from the X-Men movies is such a good example because I think
yeah, those are
those
the best ones, I think.
those are so good. They're very well done. I will say that that is one of my qualms with both versions of this movie is that um, the Flash runs like a fucking dork in these movies. Like
I was
he
fine with it
has this
actually. I was kind of
he
fine
has
with it.
this he has this weird flailing motion that he's doing, and he's kind of like doing the finger guns every time he brings his hands up. And I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to convey with that motion. Um,
I don't know. It kind of reminds me, I don't know, of like sort of like a that heavy metal movie from the 80s. It's that
mhm.
kind of wacky anime. I don't know. I kind of dig it, but
Yeah, I that just for me, my personal opinion is I'm not a huge fan of that. I think they could have just filmed this guy running and then sped it up. Like they didn't need
yeah.
to
Speaking
like
of
do this
running
weird.
really
Hmm.
fast and looking kind of interesting is
Hmm.
from Falcon and the Winter Soldier when Bucky's like catching up to that car last episode.
Right.
I still love it. I don't know why. This looks so funny. I just like the running
Actually,
fast thing.
mhm. Actually, yeah, that might be a good point to move into talking about
There's
Falcon
one
and
more
Winter.
thing I want to talk about here real fast, just
Oh, sure.
because like I am just I'm kind of crazy. And like for some reason, after watching the Snyder cut, like I want Zack Snyder to make a Star Wars movie. I want him to make a trilogy. I want it to
Hmm.
be exactly like these movies. I want to see I want to see Jedi and Sith freaking slow motion, like color drained out. Like I want to see that. That would be so cool. And like they're even like talking like Zack Snyder. I don't even care. Like I want to see that hyper masculine. I mean you could okay, so hyper masculine. I feel like you can a hyper masculine movie can have all women in it. It's just the way it's filmed to me. But like I want to see that, man. I'm kind of into that idea now, especially after that Wonder Woman fight where she's like and like hitting people around. That'd be so cool. Seeing like a Jedi like slamming people, like I guess a Sith would have to be a Sith maybe. But just like hitting people, they're like flinging through the air like a puppet or like a sack of crap. Just, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I could see a world where that works, but I do think that my only issue with that would be like giving the reins of Star Wars to someone like Zack Snyder. You'd probably run into the same type of like of movie transition or feel for movies as like when J.J. Abrams started directing the Star Trek movies. Like Star Trek is fundamentally different from Star Wars in that it's not really it's more of like action versus maybe drama, um, or just being like more emotionally involved in the movie versus just wanting explosions. And so like that would be my only I
Well,
that would
okay,
be my
so
word of caution, perhaps.
well, I mean, who's listening to me? But like Zack Snyder has this way to film, like has a way to like he films stuff that
Mhm,
it almost looks like a board game. I can't even explain it, but like just the people look like little pieces on a chessboard or something. I actually think he's like a good filmmaker. He's better than
mhm,
Michael Bay for like
mhm,
sure. Like he's so much better than that. And I how about I would just say I've never played the games, but like Knights of the Old Republic, I'd be totally
mhm,
okay if there's like, hey Zach, we got this cool Disney Plus idea. Do you want to like make those Knights of the Old Republic game into like a trilogy of movies? I'd be
mhm.
totally down with that. I'd be fine with it. Have at it,
Yeah,
Zack Snyder.
it almost sounds like, I don't know, like wasn't the Bad Batch uh announced through Disney going to be a show? I don't know if they have a director attached to that already, but maybe.
You don't know, man? Oh man, that's coming out May 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's Dave Filoni. That's when I don't think he's the the main person making it, but he's definitely
Mhm.
behind it. So
Oh,
stay tuned.
okay. All right, then it's been spoken for.
It is, yeah. Star Wars the bad bitch. It's a
The
thing.
Bad Batch, yes, as
Yeah.
it's affectionately known.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm really glad you liked Snyder Cut, and yeah, like I think, yeah, like I genuinely want more um Justice League movies and just DC films like this to come out into the world.
Did you see the trailer for the new Suicide Squad?
No, actually, yeah, that would have been a good thing to watch. Yeah, I saw that it had been released, but I'm not gonna lie. I hear Suicide Squad and my brain just kind of cringes a bit because of previous theatrical outings. So I'm a little hesitant to watch it for fear of being very disappointed.
Well, it's by James Gunn, who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Oh
It,
yeah,
it
and
looks fun.
mhm,
I'm in for it. I think they have so many actors involved.
mhm.
It's gonna be a bloodbath. I think it's like most of the characters are gonna like die in horrifying ways. Kind of like the end of episode one in Invincible.
Mhm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
no,
gonna be crazy, man. I'm excited for it. It looks really funny too. So
yeah, I'm tentatively excited for that because yeah,
watch the
that's
trailer. It'll make you more excited. Believe me,
all
it
right.
made me more
I will
excited.
I will take your advice. I'll check it out.
But yeah, okay. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Your first thoughts, Matt?
Oh yeah, the much lighter topic of how race is tackled in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Um, yeah, no, episode two I thought was still good. I mean, like my opinion on this show so far has been much more tepid in comparison to WandaVision, and I think it's mostly because there isn't this sense of I guess I'll call it childlike wonder in terms of like what could possibly happen or what is happening and not understanding quite yet what is going on. And whereas Falcon and the Winter Soldier is definitely been a little bit wearing what it is on its sleeve a little bit more. Um, but I am enjoying the interactions between the characters. Like we finally get our bro moment of Bucky and Sam meeting and having conversations about what the mantle of Captain America means to Bucky. And I know that my favorite scene out of that whole episode was absolutely the when they're with the therapist having this conversation in this moment where Bucky just really breaks his tough guy facade and really actually says what he's thinking in talking to Sam, and that, well, if Cap was wrong about you in choosing you to be Captain America, then what does that say about me? And like that moment really just struck me. It struck a chord with me. And I know that it's the second episode, so there's still much more to go before we get to like an emotional break with Sam. But um, I know that that moment really struck me. It made me excited about more dialogue between those characters. But yeah, good second episode, just as good as the first. I'm it definitely they're doing a good job, I think, of slowly painting our would-be evil Captain America into the type of antagonist that we're looking for
Yeah.
uh, in the show. So
Yeah, I don't when you were talking about Sam's conversation there where he's saying that what if Captain America, if he's wrong about Sam, then what he's wrong about me? For some reason, I don't know, you don't really like this show that much, but it reminded me kind of My Hero Aka with All Might
yes.
and
Hmm.
his faith in Deku.
Hmm.
Midoriya. Yeah. And I don't know, I really love relationships like that where it just takes one person to really believe in you, and then you can become what you were meant to be or what you wanted to be. And yeah,
Hmm.
that really rings true for me. But yeah, and it really, like, All Might is that universe's Captain America for sure. Except of course he was
Right.
born in Japan, but he he he's he's American and everything but nationality. Let's just say that.
I mean, the
Look
dude
at that
wears a
smile. Who's that's
he's
an American
he's
smile?
wearing a super spangly costume, and like you mentioned in your blog, like all of his different attacks are named after different states. Like the
Yeah,
dude's, yeah, the Captain America variant for that
yeah.
series.
Beyond that fact, yeah, I do like John Walker as a character. I think he's really interesting. I thought it was kind of an interesting way to open up that episode with kind of showing John Walker as actually kind of like a relatable dude. Not even relatable. He's straight up heroic in so many ways that your initial dislike of him, just based on his wearing that outfit and having the shield, you kind of like wonder if was I misguided in having this opinion about him?
Hmm.
And in all honesty, nothing he's done so far has really been an evil thing. Like there was a few things he did where he called Bucky Cap's old wingman that he wants to have on his side. I didn't see that as an evil thing. I just think he didn't say it right, rather than him having like malice towards anything. And telling the Sam and Bucky to stay out of his way at the end there, I didn't really take that as an evil action either.
I don't
I
know. I mean,
sorry.
I think that the tone of that statement of, stay out of my way definitely paints him as an antagonistic character for Bucky and for Sam. But
I mean, he
I
just
think in
did
the
bail Bucky out of prison, essentially, though.
right, but I don't think he's doing it for the right reasons, though. Much like in the way that you bring up that because he wants Bucky and Sam to be on his side, not he's trying to get them to be on his side, not because he really wants their help or their resources. He likes the optics of it.
Yeah, and I know people say that. I just don't think there's any evidence of it by the actual show yet. They say, "Oh well, Sam Walker's he he he's not a good man like Steve Rogers was," but so far I haven't really seen evidence that that's the case. Like I feel like a lot of people are making assumptions, but we don't really know yet.
Well, I think if you're going to take the full quote in context of being a good man, like it isn't the full quote of that like a good man, not a soldier, but a good man. And I think we're seeing in this moment with Walker that he's a soldier through and through. Like he's very heroic, and you'd have a hard time arguing that he's not a heroic character and that he's not brave and that he's not strong and very very capable. But I think when it comes down to the brass tacks of it, he's a soldier, and that's not what Captain America is about. Like you look at Steve, he desperately wanted to be a soldier, but ultimately, what the reason he was chosen for this experiment to become a super soldier and to ultimately be Captain America was his lack of being a soldier. And I think we're seeing right now with Walker that this is the version of Captain America you get when you throw a soldier into the mantle.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, and I do think as the show progresses, we're going to see Walker's faults. I just don't think in the show itself those faults have really been portrayed yet. Because yes, yeah, he was a soldier, but is that a bad thing? You know, like he might be a soldier, but he might be something beyond that too, and I think he will be.
Mm-hmm.
But again, obviously, he's going to have some faults. I have my theories on what's going to play out because apparently in the graphic not or the comics, there's a guy, and I can't, I'm spacing on his name right now, but he is sort of like a businessman who gives Walker the super soldier serum.
Mm-hmm.
And in the yeah, in the comic books, he Walker goes back and forth apparently from being an anti-hero and a hero. So
mm-hmm.
I don't think he's gonna be straight up villainous. I do think there's gonna be some tension. There already is tension, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
and maybe he will be villainous up and I'm hoping he gets to continue on because I do think he's a more nuanced villain
Mm-hmm.
than what we've usually seen from Marvel. So I like that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think I think ultimately we're going to be I think there's another villain at play, villain at play here that we haven't seen yet.
And I think it's this might be this capitalist guy. I wish I could remember
Mhm.
his name right now. But
because I think like Zemo, clearly Zemo's like going to be introduced at some point. That was the ending of that second episode was um, wanting to go question uh, Zemo about his goings on and what his connection to these organizations like the Flag Smashers might be.
yeah, and it's kind
But
of obvious the Flag Smashers aren't. I don't think they're the main villains. It doesn't seem like they're kind of painting them as sort of sympathetic.
mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah, I think there's in that original or the comic storyline that I believe I believe it's called the Captain arc. Um, but when U.S. Agent is introduced into the comics, um, there's a the government essentially intentionally gives a group of villains uh, this moment to support Steve Rogers, to be a fan of Steve Rogers and Captain America, and to have U.S. Agent essentially beat the crap out of them in front of a live audience to prove that it's all. See, I'm superior to Captain America, and so I think ultimately what's happening here is the Flag Smashers are going to be a villainous group concocted by someone. We don't know who yet, but they are there intentionally to fall at the hands of this new Captain America. That's kind of my running theory at this
Oh, so
point.
it's like kind of like a conspiracy that like they were kind of set up as like a fall guy to show that this new Captain America is worthy
Yeah,
almost.
that he's worthy, or that the world should fear this Captain America in the same way that the evildoers of the world should fear this Captain America as much as they
Hmm.
did the original.
Yeah, that's a really cool theory, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think yeah, I like that idea a lot, right? Like because I think that sets up this new Captain America Walker to be, like you said, a more nuanced character because I don't think he's going to be aware of the fact that he's
Yeah.
being played that way. and it's going to lead to some really interesting interactions down the road.
And if that theory is correct, it also makes sense that they set up Isaiah in this episode has already kind of been manipulated by the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean that would make sense to me. Yeah, I hope
Do
that
you
is it.
know? Do you know much of Isaiah and his like background? Is he a character from the comic books that I'm not aware of?
He is from the
Um,
comics. Yeah, he was a Black Captain America actually.
oh, okay. So
Yeah,
like, and he was era specific then,
I
or
believe
like it
so.
just in a. Mhm.
Yeah, we should do a little bit more research on that for next week because I feel like this will be important going forward for the show,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah,
just
because
interesting too. So
yeah,
yeah,
no, absolutely. Like I was intrigued immediately by that character and
yeah,
what the implications of that were, because
yeah.
you know, like I
I saw
joked
a
about.
meme on Reddit, and it was like,
Mhm.
"Which Captain America are you gonna get in Falcon and the Winter Soldier?" And then it said Marvel, and Marvel's response was yes, because apparently Isaiah, like his grandson, also plays a version of Captain America called the Patriot, I think.
The Patriot. Okay.
Yeah, so the people think that they might be setting up like a Young Avengers because it seems like they're like
Uh,
putting into place all these different characters that could be
mhm.
in the Young Avengers, like Kamala Khan, I think that's her name, right? Miss
Yeah,
Marvel,
Miss
and
Marvel.
then
Yeah,
Riri from Ironheart, and
yeah,
then
Riri Williams.
yeah, and then quick, sorry, uh, Wanda's children. I'm trying to blank on their names right now.
Oh, Speed and um,
Yeah,
Wiccan.
yeah. And apparently Wiccan, if you didn't know this, was gay in the Marvel comics and is in a relationship with like Thor or not Thor, Hulkling. Didn't know that.
Yes, no, I do remember
Yeah,
hearing. I did hear that he was gay. I didn't know who exactly he was with, but
yeah.
yeah,
I just
like
thought it was kind of interesting. And
yeah,
yeah, just some other characters like
mhm,
from Hawkeye too. I can't remember Haley Statwell, I think her name is. She's playing like another
mhm,
version of Hawkeye. So yeah, nice.
sure. Yeah, and I would totally be down for that kind of setup. And that's exactly what these shows are for, right? They are there explicitly to set up the narratives for the big film releases
Yeah.
and to do a lot of the grunt work of storytelling without the huge budget required for a film. Though though I would be curious about like budget wise how expensive it was to make a show like WandaVision in comparison to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, in addition to just like what the budgets were for both shows in comparison to an actual like MCU film.
Yeah, I remember I think it was like $25 million per episode. So
Mhm.
they definitely weren't cheap to make, but as far as a branding thing and getting people's eyes on Disney Plus, definitely a great move by Disney. So
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
um also really enjoyed the first episode of The Mighty Ducks, by the way. Thought it was pretty decent. We
Oh,
got
that did come out,
Emilio.
didn't
Emilio, he's back, baby.
it? He's back, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we are, although we are continuing going through a pandemic world, um, we certainly have no shortage of cool things to be watching right now. Um, with Disney Plus popping off, with WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then coming down the pipe with Loki.
I'm so excited
And
for Loki actually.
yeah.
I'm just like excited to see like the time variance
Hmm.
authority and how that could actually play in with WandaVision. It probably won't, but I kind of wanted to. So,
No, I mean,
because
I think
yeah, because
there's
Wanda,
so
if you
much
didn't know, is a
potential.
Nexus figure. Nexus
Hmm.
being in the Marvel comics, and
Hmm.
obviously they made reference to her being a Nexus being in one of those fake ads in WandaVision. And
Right.
apparently in Marvel Comics, the Time Variance Authority, which Loki is now apparently a prisoner of watches these Nexus beings to make sure they don't alter the timeline too much.
Hmm.
So that's exciting for me to see how that'll play out. Anyway.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I'm really excited for Loki for that same organization, but for reasons of comparison to Umbrella Academy.
Uh,
Like I don't know if you've spent much time watching Umbrella Academy.
no, I haven't. I've been meaning to. I like Gerard Way, so
Yeah, I 100% recommend. There's a similar type of organization in that show, and that's all I'll really say at this juncture. But that comparison makes me really hype for like what could be going on in Loki and just how crazy the storyline could possibly get.
yeah. Yeah, I think it could be pretty sweet. I also wonder too, because Loki like pretty overtly plays into like all these different timeline things, and how that if that'll somehow tie into like the What If animated show that Marvel's putting out afterwards.
Hmm.
As another aside too, I don't know if you know this, but Black Widow got delayed till the summer, and they're going to also be releasing it on Disney Plus at the same time for that $30 premium fee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
And they also
mean,
delayed Shang-Chi till September.
hmm.
And I don't know if Eternals got delayed. I'm actually kind of excited for Eternals now as well, because
Hmm.
I think that could be a huge like Nexus movie of Marvel. Like I think there's clues out there that that movie is going to be bigger than people realize. And also I think it's going to be really good because it's by Chloe. I hope I'm saying
Hmm.
your last name right. Zhao, who did Nomadland, which was really good. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I guess I'm not really that surprised by them pushing those movies back.
I was kind of
Um,
surprised that they did that actually. I thought they would just keep it the same and then release it on premium and in theaters
yeah,
on May.
I think they are they want those movie they want those movie tickets to sell, man. Like they want to be able to put these movies in theaters, but the world's just not ready for that quite yet. Um, like I know that I'm halfway through my my dosing of a vaccine for COVID, and that's one of the first things I want to do when I'm fully vaccinated. Like is to go see a movie. But until then, like you couldn't pay me enough money to be in a movie theater or at this juncture.
It just
And
got really windy here all of a sudden. Huh. Interesting.
but but yeah, like I think Marvel's probably looking a little bit at how Wonder Woman 1984 did. And if I'm going to make a comparison with Wonder Woman 1984 that I think is appropriate, I think that movie, in terms of its quality, which is to say, not much, is much along the same way as Bright from Netflix with Will Smith. Um, that movie had a lot of promise, but the only reason it was that successful was because of the day it came out. It was available to people. Um, like it came out on Netflix on Christmas Day.
HBO Max.
Um,
Oh,
no,
Brightburn.
Bright, yeah.
Right. Sorry, Bright.
And like that movie did really well that way in terms of just like total views. And even I bet they probably even had a spike in the number of like free trials that were probably started up on that day. Like it was just a huge moment for Netflix. And I think Wonder Woman 1984 did a similar thing for HBO Max. They released it on Christmas Day, on a day where a ton of people were going to be home and going to need something to watch. Like, there's only so much to talk about with your family. Let's put something on the TV so everyone can shut up for a minute and have a moment of silence.
Yeah.
And and for that movie to be there as an option, I think was a really smart move on HBO Max's part. And I think Disney Plus and Disney as an organization is following suit with Black Widow.
Yeah.
It's
Disney's
not going to
kind of
be.
doing like a weird hybrid thing compared to other companies, as far as I understand, because
Mhm,
they're putting it out on Disney Plus um, early
mhm,
early access for $30, but they're also
mhm.
releasing it in the theaters.
Right.
And obviously, HBO Max is they're not even charging you anything for the premium access. As long as you have
Mhm,
HBO Max subscription, you can watch it. And the other thing too that Disney's doing a little bit differently. So, um, like with Wonder Woman, they only put it on there for a month. They put it on there for 30 days.
mhm.
After the 30 days, you couldn't watch it again until it releases on video, I'd assume.
Sure.
But if you have the premium access and you get, let's say, Black Widow on in July, you have it for good. Like you'll have it. It won't disappear. So that's
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Uh, you know, and I think that's going to ultimately be my issue with how, because Disney Plus did the exact same thing with Mulan,
And
correct?
Raya. And Raya.
Yeah, like you have access to those shows or to those movies with a $30 price tag, and I think it depends on what demographic you're talking about. Because for my wife and I, for example, $30 is not terrible. It's a bit of a steep jump in terms of price because it depends on how you go to the movies, right? Um,
Yeah. I mean,
are
I've
you
heard
this?
it argued both ways though, because you think, oh, you go to a movie with your wife, that's like $15 per person right there, at least.
Hmm.
And
Right, and
all at
that's
the
not even.
yeah. And also at the same time too, you have access to this movie, like you can watch it twice in a row.
Hmm.
So if you really like the movie, you can watch it twice, three times, four times. You don't have to keep paying for it over and over.
Right, which is good, but you also still need to keep paying for the service to have access to that. And like what I would be curious about, because I know that some services offer this as an option for people to do, and I'm not entirely sure um, if Disney Plus would be even open to this or how they would approach this. But like, kind of pausing your subscription for a spell. Like I know some people that's how they watched Game of Thrones by means of HBO. They turned off their HBO subscription until there was new Game of Thrones, and then they would essentially turn it back on um,
Well, yeah.
and start paying again to be able to watch the thing that they wanted to watch. And so with Disney Plus, like, well, if you did that, if you turned your subscription off and then turned it back on, would those things that you paid for $30 still be there when you came back, or would they be gone now?
Well, here's the thing too, Matt. So as far as like, let's say you paid the $30 premium access, right?
Hmm.
Those movies, like, so, and as far as like Ray is concerned,
Hmm.
so you have premium access between now and I think June, and then June it just gets rolled out into the actual service, so then you don't have to
Sure.
pay for it. So even if
Hmm.
like you did like pay for it and it wasn't there when you got back into it,
Hmm.
if you pause your subscription, I'm saying, like
Sure.
you'd only have to wait probably, I don't know, a month for it to pop back in. But I'm kind of thinking that Disney will probably save that if you
Hmm.
paused it. I don't want to like promote Disney here, but I don't think it's a concern.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I'm already kind of against this idea of Disney kind of double dipping as is, because they're already getting your dollars in terms of a subscription fee, and but they're also asking you to pay $30 for access to these movies, quote unquote, early.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with it just because, like you said, like you're afraid to go to the movie theater right now. So, I mean,
Hmm.
if they didn't say this was going to be a permanent thing, maybe it will be. But as far as like a stopgap solution, I don't think it's. They put a lot of money into these things, so I understand where they're
Hmm.
coming from, which is why Black Widow keeps getting delayed. Like, I
Right.
don't fault them for doing whatever they're doing. So
Yeah. I think my biggest qualm is just the price tag. For me personally, I think like $30 is that real bleeding edge of
yeah,
impulse buy.
I mean,
Like,
I didn't do it for Mulan,
hmm.
which thank God. and I didn't. I haven't
Yeah.
done it for Raya, which I also heard is a pretty good movie, but
Mhm.
I could see myself doing it for Black Widow for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I think I would do that for Black Widow almost entirely out of fear of spoilers and things of
Yeah.
that nature, because I know that, like, for me personally, uh, Endgame was a person attempted to spoil Endgame for me, like the like hours before I saw the movie, and in a place that I never would have even remotely imagined it would be possible. Like it was the most ridiculous thing, and it ended up being only like half true, like in terms of a spoiler.
You can't leave it at there, Matt. What what happened? Like what?
uh,
You don't have to
okay,
use names if you're worried about that.
no, it's not like a person thing. No, like what it was. So I'm an avid Destiny 2 player. So I play a lot of Destiny, and but I'm also a solo Destiny player generally, which I like to be able to play content that requires more people. But to do that often requires seeking out the assistance of strangers on the internet. And so they have
This
apps for
conversation, you're talking about your solo time and strangers on the internet. This is
yeah.
going to a weird place, Matt. Okay.
I mean, trust me, I know this weird path I'm going down. Uh, but yeah, like I wanted to be able to like play, like a dungeon or a raid. I forget which I was doing that day, but like I wanted to do to play some form of content in Destiny that required more than just me. And so they have an app for Destiny 2 that allows you to be able to seek out assistance from other players who play the game. And you can look through lobbies of people or invitations from people of like, hey, like I'm trying to do this activity or this activity, and I'm looking for however many people, blah, blah, blah. And one of the invites that was on my screen that day was, and I guess spoilers if you haven't seen Endgame, but if you haven't seen Endgame, what the fuck are you doing listening to this podcast? Um, Slight pause.
Longer. Longer.
I'm broken. I'm broken. No, the name of the group was Captain America Dies at the End of Endgame. And like as I'm browsing through, I I see the name of this group and I immediately jump out of the app. I turn off Destiny. I just walk away and I'm like, God fucking damn it. Like I am hours away from watching this movie and this is when this happens. You have got
But
to be shitting
it at least it turned out
me.
not to be true, really. So
Right? Yeah, like it was one of those things where it was a half truth.
I got it.
And
I have a spoiler, Matt. Okay. I'm gonna spoil tag this real fast.
yeah, spoil tag this real fast.
Okay. Longer. Longer. If you better
Longer.
not want to know this.
Let her rip.
Longer. Okay.
Uh,
Harry Potter is a wizard.
oh god damn it. Get the hell out of here. But yeah, like that
You're
would
a
be my
wizard,
motivation, right?
Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
Like that would be my motivation, right? For paying for access to a show or movie early would be to avoid moments like that, because there are sadistic people on the internet who will go out of their way to try and spoil a thing for people who haven't seen the thing yet. And that's my long-winded argument for why I
Yeah.
would pay $30 for this goddamn movie. But
Did you know that Bran the Broken
has a more interesting story.
than anyone in the Seven Kingdoms? Did you know that? And he's gonna become king of Westeros,
The King of Westeros.
which makes no sense.
Oh God! Don't even get me started on Game of Thrones. As a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. This will
But
turn into a 5-hour podcast.
But the actor that played Jon Snow, which I believe is Kit Harington, and the actor that played Robb Stark. Spoilers: Robb Stark was murdered at the red wedding. But the actor that plays Robb Stark, who I'm drawing a blank on, they're both going to be in Marvel's The Eternals.
Hmm.
They both are playing kind of like knightly characters, I think. So reunited and it feels so good.
I'm excited for Eternals, but I don't know how excited. Like I will definitely go see that movie when it releases, but at this juncture, I'm not jumping out of my seat excited. I'm excited in the same way.
I'm more curious than excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. It's curiouser and curiouser. But then they have like a little girl character that's a god apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like wondering, like, she has to die, right? Like, there's no way she can live. It's like can't keep having a little girl character in a movie because she's gonna get older.
I don't know. That's getting into some deep baseball there. That's
yes. Also, Invincible. There's a little girl character called Monster Girl who shows up in episode 3.
Ooh.
Really cool character. I have a feeling the character in the Eternals might be kind of similar to this character, but I guess I could know. I mean, just do a Marvel wiki lookup, but it's kind of
right. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, that's true.
But that being said, we have been long-winded enough as it is. We've probably reached an appropriate stopping point for this particular episode.
I'm always amazed how long we go on for. I always think we're gonna be like, oh yeah, probably 40 minutes, and then like it turns into like at least
2 hours later. No, we have fun wax poeticking about just all of the goings on in nerd culture, and that's why we like to.
Wax Poetica sounds like a like a arcane magic book.
You mean the Wax Poetica? But that text's forbidden.
Yeah. Forget the Darkhold.
The Wax Poetica.
This is the Wax Poetica. It sounds like something like someone would belch in between like the wax and the Poetica. Like, this is the Wax Poetica.
Oh God. All right, Rick, calm down. No, with that, I think that we should probably bring this episode to a close. And I thank all of you, all of our listeners, all 2 of you, for joining us on episode 4 of the Nerds of the North podcast. And we look forward to speaking about our opinions on all things nerdy on next week's episode. And with that, we will bid you adieu.
Yep. Goodbye, everyone. I appreciate everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.